guys, it's me, Tomeka James, and you guys are on with me for late night weaving tips. So good evening or good night or whatever you guys want to say. Tonight I have 3 tips for you guys. So I'm actually going to demonstrate these tips for you. Hey Lady Shy, hey Weave Expert. So you might want to share this broadcast so that other folks can catch these lovely tips that I'm going to give tonight. So I'm Tomeka James and I'm a Weave Expert. I'm a Weave Experts team leader and a whole bunch of other things. I also run a show called Extensions Expo, and I love weaving. Hi, Delisana. Hey, Christina. All right, guys. So these 3 tips I find to be very essential to the weaving game, and when I do hands-on classes, these are always included. I make sure that people know about these tips because they can pretty much, all right, I'll just call you D. Hey girl. So I want to pretty much make sure that you guys get these tips because they're really essential. So hi Cynthia. So tonight I am going to show you guys, as my very first tip, I'm going to show you guys how to properly thread your needle. Hi Mia. So you guys know when you're on with me live, if I share something with you and it has added value to you and your career and your life, then I need you to type AV on the screen if I have added value to you. So tip number 1 from Tomeka James, the Weave Expert, which is also the Weave Experts International Team Leader. I have a team of experts that are in over 14 different states, and we train the world to weave. So tonight, my first tip is how to properly thread your needle. Now, I know it might seem simple, but I gotta share this because when I'm educating, I give it all and I make sure you have what you need. So I am using a curved needle because when I'm working with the curved needle, I literally have a specific hand position that works for me, which is to put my thumb under the curve and my pointer at the tip of the needle for control when I'm actually sewing. So when I want to sew through a weft or whatever I may want to do, I have control. Now some people hold their needle like this, so I want to share with you guys, if you're holding your needle like this, it does not give you much control. So once again, your thumb goes under the curve of the needle and your pointer goes more toward the edge, which gives you control while you're working. All right, so threading my needle properly, I'm using nylon thread. I have put the thread through the little hole here. What's important for you to know, tip number 1 is thread your needle your own arm's length from the center of your chest to as far as your arm can reach. All right, so put the thread in and then we're gonna pull, and you guys see I'm using my weave block here, so this is on the table and this is what I use to thread my needles. So as far as my own arm can reach, I could turn my screen sideways for you guys as well, but most of what I'm gonna be doing is gonna be vertical. So as far as my arm can reach from the center of my chest. So what does the center of my chest actually represent? It represents the client that will be sitting in your chair. So the client in your chair is gonna be sewn like this. You're gonna sew them just like this. So as far as your arm can reach is as far as you need to thread your needles. Now this is your arm's length, not your friend's arm length or your sister or your cousin's arm length. It is your own arm's length, okay? So sometimes when you get other people to thread your needles for you, you might make one that they can actually see and they can actually use it as a guide, okay? Or it's a roundabout from your own arm's length, okay? So guys, remember, if I have given you added value, I want you to type AV on the screen and feel free at any given time to give hearts and share this broadcast. So what I'm doing next is I'm cutting my thread. And I'm using my Meka Small weaving scissors. Everybody needs to have these because these are so awesome and they just are amazing. Now, I can now opt to tie a knot in my thread, or I can opt to just leave it open. So if you guys have taken classes with me, you know that a lot of the time I will actually leave this open and I will sew with what we call a single thread process, okay? So that was tip number 1. tip number 2. I'm actually going to open up some of this hair that I have around here. Some outre hair, it's a velvet Brazilian hair. I just had a pack here, so I'm opening it up. And I want to share with you exactly what I'm going to do next. So I'm using my Meka weaving scissors to cut all of the things that are inside the pack. All right, so to make life easy for me, I'm just going to unroll one side. The scissors are called the Meka Small weaving scissors. Ladies, shall I put on the screen where they can find those scissors if you're still there? Okay, so unrolling, unrolling, unrolling. Tonight, I'm giving you guys 3 weaving tips, okay? So my next weaving tip is going to be, have you guys ever been sewing and at the very edge, like your first row, or not even your first row, I'm gonna tell you this is a good spot, usually like right here when you're sewing, like somewhere right here, and you want your track to lay really flat, if you're doing like a full sewn weave, or if you're doing a braided weave and you literally have a braid and you have a track that you're getting ready to add, but you feel like the track is really thick, right? So this next tip that I'm going to give you guys is a tip where we're going to use the Meka Small weaving scissors, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the weft, and it is consisting of 2 pieces being sewn together. All right, so the next thing that the tip number 2 that I'm gonna share with you guys. Angela, are you trying to write AV on the screen? Hi. All right, my next tip for you guys is that what I'm gonna do is I am going to literally take my Meka weaving scissors and I'm snipping at the end between the 2 tracks, right? So I'm breaking this into 2 little pieces here. So let's turn so you guys see I break it into 2 pieces here on the corner. So tonight you guys are on with Tomeka James giving 3 weaving tips, and I'm on tip number 2. All right, so here at the end, it's so thick. I don't want all that fullness when I'm ready to sew my track down. So what I do is I snip the very end, and what I'm gonna do is on the bottom part, on the underside, I am going to snip out a little piece, okay? So that little piece there, I remove it so that here on the edge, it is nice and flat. It is still the track, and I am able to sew on the top of this without having the additional bulk on the end. So if you're ever in a position where you are sewing and you really don't want that end part to be really lumpy and bulky, then you can once again take your Meka weaving scissors and begin to snip right through the 2 pieces that we have here, and I am going to remove the bottom piece. Wow, I do that. Amazing. So guys, some things that I share are some things that you guys are already doing. Some things I share are some things that are really, really new to someone out there. So I am really pleased that you're already doing that, and that's really cool. Now, who is seeing that for the first time? Can you put a 1 on the screen if what I just showed you is something that you're seeing for the very first time? Give me a 1 on the screen, and that'll let me know how many people actually don't know what I just showed. And like I said, I'm really happy that the person that just said they do that, I'm happy that you do, because there's so much that we need to do in this weaving industry. Like, there's so many things that we really, really have to, like, add on to what we're already doing. So cool, there's a bunch of people who are seeing this for the first time, so that's really cool. All right, so I have shown you guys 2 weaving tips already. So tonight's broadcast is fairly quick. I am going to be showing you 3 tips in total. So my 3rd tip for you guys tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So there's a bunch of people who I'm showing something to for the very first time. This is really, really cool. All right, so let's use that little tip. I'm going to show you guys again. And ladies, I put on the screen, they need the weave block. That's what is actually here, is holding my thread. So I have threaded my needle, and I put it on top of the weave block, which is, I normally thread all of these needles, a whole bunch of them, and put them on the weave block and get them ready. But what I'm going to show you right now is, let's show tip number 2 one more time. So we go basically at the tip of the track here, Now, I got more tips for you guys. I have another tip that's very similar to this one. And if you guys follow me, you already know about that tip, the fold over method. But it's always a good thing to learn different ways to get results you want and to be better. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so I'm doing that tip again. I am cutting out the underside. So we have removed a small piece so that the very first track, the edge of the track that we're sewing on is actually going to be flat. Guys, we don't want lumpy weaves, right? So you guys are on with Tomeka James tonight. It's late night weaving tips. All right. So tip number 3, I'm picking up that threaded needle. If you missed it earlier, tip number 1 was that we thread our needle our own arm's length as far as our arm can reach, from the middle of our chest to as far as our arm can reach. Now, what I'm going to show you guys now, I feel good. I have been doing it right. Yeah, Cynthia. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, guys, tip number 3, I am going to take my unknotted thread. There's no knot in here. Okay. And I am now going to make my thread a little uneven. Okay. So I always want one to be shorter than the other. Okay. All right. So what we're doing here is now I'm going to grab that track that I did that special thing on. And I am now, let me make sure y'all can see good. All right. I am now going to start sewing here. Now I have one of two things I could do. I could just start sewing, or I can attach first. So there's 2 ways. I'm not here to show y'all everything because y'all could come and take a hands-on class with me and I will show you everything in the class. But what I'm going to do is show you how to attach to the weft here, okay, without using a knot. So this is going to be a time-saving tip, and it also will allow you to make everything more flat. So what I'm doing is I am going to sew, and I'm going to leave about 1 inch of the thread hanging out here at the edge here. Then I'm going to go back into my weft and I'm going to stitch over the same location twice. So you can do this once, twice, or 3 times, totally up to you. All right. So I'm located in New Jersey. So I've done that 3 times. What I'm now going to do in order to start sewing, I haven't even gotten to tip number 3, y'all. I didn't even show y'all what tip number 3 is yet, even though you got another tip here. Okay. So what I did just now was, that piece of thread that was sitting out, I literally take it with my finger and I tuck it underneath. Okay, so it's out of the way. It's not bothering anyone, like not a single soul. No one's bothered by this little piece of thread. All right, next, here we go for tip number 3. Selma, Alabama. Well, Selma, I am coming to Mobile, Alabama in about 3.5 weeks from now. So I will be at the Tour Hair Expo. You need to come and check out the whole show. I'm actually doing a look and learn and a hands-on class. Okay, so here we go, y'all. Tip number 3. Man, I got to show you other stuff before I even get to tip number 3, which is so really crazy. Okay, so I'm just going to start sewing here. Man, oh man, I'm not going to talk about all of this because this is a special stitch that I'm doing on the beginning because there's a special stitch you have to do when you start sewing to lay it nice and flat. Okay, all right, here we go. Guess what, guys? This other piece is always hanging out. It does not get sewn into the rest. What you need to know is while I'm sewing, I am actually putting my thumb under the curve of the needle, and I literally have my my thumb and my middle finger are both holding on to where the loop is located so that I'm able to control this thread so it does not come out while I'm working. Okay? All right, so now I can actually get to tip number 3 because I didn't get there yet. Sheesh. Tip number 3 is when you are stitching. I want to share with you that there is something that you can do while you're sewing to make sure that you are able to control your thread. So what we need to know is that we are going to always put our thumb in the stream of the thread, and I'm literally going to sew underneath, and I'm going to attach to my weft. I put my thumb, I put my middle finger, I use all kind of fingers in here. So here is the thing. If we were using a double thread, meaning that I had a knot in my thread, have you guys ever been sewing? And when you started sewing, what happens is when you go to pull down, both of the threads come down at different rates. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Pump some hearts on the screen or some thumbs if you know what I'm saying. When you have a double thread, not a single, but when you go to come down, one thread comes down before the other one and it makes a knot. So I don't have a knot in my thread right now. I do not. All right, so to alleviate that thing that you guys are pumping those hearts and those thumbs for, you are going to keep your thumb in the stream of the thread when you're sewing, okay? Now, when you guys take hands-on classes with us, these are the things that you guys are actually able to learn. So here we go. You always put your thumb in the stream of the thread. Now, you can sew through the track. You can sew through the track. This is automatically bringing me into a lock stitch also, by the way, guys, because I'm holding the thread up. My other thread is on this side over here, and my needle is coming right up through the center. So my thumb is always in the stream of the thread to control what's happening, okay? So that is tip number 3. So just to show you guys when people are having the trouble with the double thread, I'm going to make my thread double for you just so you can see what I'm talking about, because I know a lot of you sew with a double thread. But why do I even bother using a single? You guys see how far this thread goes out? It goes out way further because I'm always working with only one side of the thread. So literally I just keep readjusting until I have a small piece of thread that annoys the crap out of me. And then I will go ahead and lock my thread and then use a new one, okay? So for the sake of those of you out there who use this double thread all the time, I use it too, but not all the time. I prefer more so to use a single because my single, once again, can allow me to use less thread. I have to make less needles. When I'm sewing on the end, it's very flat. There's a lot of different benefits to using a single thread. So share this broadcast because I'm just giving 3 tips tonight. And give me some hearts and type AB on the screen if I have added value to you in your life. So if you're just joining, I want you to type added value every time I give you something good that you can use. So here we go. I'm going to do my next one for you. And I hope that you guys can see. All right, so here we go. My thumb goes in the stream of the thread. I am now going to stitch through the weft or under it. It's totally up to you for what you want to do. I am now going to grab my needle and let's make that situation happen, that one that always happens for you. So I'm going to make it where something comes down separate. You guys know what I'm talking about. When you're sewing, you end up having one loop up here, one down here. So now when you get ready to pull it, one comes down first and it locks, and then you have a loop of thread left. So with this technique here, your thumb is always in the stream of the thread. If you guys can see, there's a loop here and a loop here. We are going to jiggle on it with this hand, pull, 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 and we're going to equalize both of these threads until the loop is just equal. And now we can pull down and do the next stitch. So when I'm teaching, I teach you guys to use your thumb or your middle finger. So I will generally put my thumb in and then my middle finger actually goes up. So that's basically how I do it. And literally I am ready for the next stitch. So here we go. If I'm sewing, this is my action. My thread always gets pulled up. I'm in a lock stitch. If I want to do any of those double locking mechanisms that we do, I could either come through and then go back through the loop again and give myself a double lock. Now when you're sewing to the left and when you're sewing to the right, things are a little bit different going to the left and going to the right. But you still can do a lot of the same things. Like going to the right, I would wrap my thread around my needle if I want to do a double lock instead of just coming back through the loop. I would wrap around. So left and right is a little bit different when you are working. So guys, oh, that would have been good if I did use blind thread, but guess what? So you are so in line with how I actually teach. I have a video that actually is called How to Properly Stitch. And in the video, I actually use blind thread because I did want people to be able to see it. So Kay does my hair, girl, you on the same page with me. So when I'm teaching, you know, sometimes like I'm teaching to an entire audience, there are some things that I'll do for the sake of teaching so that people can actually see. And like when I do like the Malaysian weave, when we're doing a large class and I'm doing, which is the one where you put the micro links on the hair first and create a base, and then you sew a weft on top. I use a blonde link in that case when I'm teaching a class, so people could see exactly where the link is located. Even though I wouldn't use a blonde link on black hair, like I wouldn't do that. Even though with the Malaysian weave, it doesn't matter because the links are underneath and they create a base, and then you sew your wefts on top. So actually a track shows like it covers the whole thing. But anyway, guys, I gave you 3 tips tonight. I just wanted to be brief and quick. I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything, but I am Tomeka James, the Weave X-Perts International Team Leader. I really enjoy weaving. I love training the world to weave, and that is our motto. We train the world to weave. So these little tips and tricks are the things that I share when I'm doing a hands-on class. These are the things that I share sometimes when I'm doing a look and learn class as well. Hey, Nita, I saw your comment earlier. Sorry, I meant to say hello to you. So yeah, these are the things that I like to teach because this is what I see. When it comes down to weaving, we could do this right, or we could just do it quick, or we could do it wrong. And I feel like the more that we understand the individual things that we're actually doing, the more that you can actually get your job done in an effective way. So like when I'm teaching, I will teach a lock stitch, a round stitch, a different kind of stitch. I'll teach you the name of it, and I'll teach you what it's for so you'll know when to actually use it. Because if you're just only using 1 stitch or 2 stitches, that is not all that's out there. So there are a few stitches. I'm an innovator, so I've created a few stitches that emulate some other things, but it's just a matter of using what is needed at that time. So I will answer a question that I know that most people have for me. People say, Tomeka, well, which stitch do you use the most when you're weaving? Girl, bye. When I'm weaving, I will use whatever stitch is appropriate, what is appropriate for my timing, what's appropriate for the situation at hand. So there is a stitch called a loop stitch, which literally you just sew like this. I can't be doing that to my clients that's paying me $200 and up for, you know, whatever they're getting done. I can't do that. But if I needed to do that for something, I'm doing photo shoot, I'm doing something, or my client clearly told me this weave is coming out in 2.5 weeks. Why am I wasting my life away doing all the good stitches when I could get this lady's weave in and not worry about a thing? Okay, so I use appropriate stitches for the appropriate situation at hand. And even when I do that, there is another thing that I would do to lock it in place every so often. So those are the kind of things I like to make sure that my beauty professionals actually know and understand, and where you guys are able to implement these things when you're working, where you don't have to like have me there with you. You just remember what I said in the class and you can actually just do it. So you want to learn invisible part sew-ins. So, I mean, I definitely could teach you those things. It is a matter of placing your tracks, and depending on what kind of hair you're using would determine whether you need to split the tracks or whether you use this special method that we use to fold over to be able to sew, to do a sew-in with an invisible part. And deep down on my Instagram a while back, I did few photos of me doing a invisible part sew-in where the invisible part was here in the center, and I showed what the base was, because if you do certain things underneath, you will spare yourself so that you're not sewing on loose braids or you're not sewing on a weak base. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you can actually do to make sure that your invisible part sewn weave is actually done correctly. Okay. And sometimes, girl, I would do that on my sewing machine sometimes. I will sew those tracks really close on my sewing machine and then put them on a client's head. There's a lot of things that can be done. Do I still have a mentor program in the group? Oh, so that was in the other group. That was actually, the mentor group was in my Facebook group, which is called Pure Beauty Advancement. That was when we were over there. We started it, we did it for a little while, and it kind of dropped off because I don't know, everybody wasn't staying in touch with the mentors and things like that, but we don't currently have that right now. So, but I do, you know, as far as mentorship goes, guys, it's really tough to mentor individuals and use that time. So basically, I do it as a paid mentorship at this point, where you spend a certain amount of time with me via phone or via internet. and we talk about what's going on with you and what you actually need. Because I can actually help a lot of people through the phone, but it has to be a specific time that we kind of carve out and we use for that particular thing, just because I'm doing a whole lot of things out here. So guys, I thank you all for joining tonight. I don't know if you have any other questions for me, but I was just getting on briefly. If you are just joining, please watch this from the beginning. I shared 3 weaving tips that will save you guys and spare you and help your weave life out to the utmost. So it was all about sewing tonight. So I share, you know, threading and stitching and some other stuff. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much. Well, guys, I'm going to go now. That's all I came on for tonight, was to share those tips. So have a great evening, and thank you for joining, and thank you for sharing the broadcast if you did that, and thank you for those lovely thumbs and hearts, and thank you for typing AV on the screen when you received some added value. All right? Anytime you join me, I don't have to say it. Just type AV if I said something, did something that was like, type that on the screen. Let me know, you know, what's working for you. All right, peace and blessings to you. Good night, Dee. Good night, Tanya. Hey, Stephanie, thank you so much. So y'all have a good night. Peace out. Bye-bye.